Gaffer, 2-0 defeat home to Accrington Stanley at the Exercise Stadium this evening. How do you sum up the performance?
Well, disappointing. I was disappointed with the goal we conceded just before half time because it was a very traditional game of football with the elements. The wind was swirling for both teams, made it difficult to get the ball down and play. We didn't earn the right. I didn't think physically as much as we did at the start of the last game against Blackpool, but so that was a little bit frustrating. So there was no real momentum built up because of that. We had to then address the players at half time. And of course there's going to be emotions and frustrations at conceding that with just one added minute to play. A sloppy defensive piece of work. Second half though, we introduced Stephen Duke McKenna, and he gets injured after 3 minutes, and it's another bit of disappointing news for us. Obviously, he's on crutches now, but we didn't show anything really second half where you go, oh yeah, that's a bit of us. And to say it was just a week ago in our last performance, how good we were against Blackpool. Listen, we want to do well in that cup, but it's imperative we're able to reproduce, that kind of performance, that level of performance in the league.
You mentioned obviously Blackpool a couple of times there. I thought tonight we started off fairly quickly again, looked to sort of maybe seize the initiative and take the game to them. Came across, a fairly resolute back line that Accrington had today. Do you think we could have done a little bit more maybe to sort of create chances, carve a way through, or was the conditions, such that we were having a little bit?
I don't think the elements are easy to play in, but we worked the ball several times first half to the final third, but we weren't inventive enough or exciting enough, in front of the fans. There was no real enterprise where you thought, oh yeah, that's the talent that was on show this time last week. It's a consistency factor which is hard. It's been hard for us, to be honest, to put a consistent team down on paper, due to the injuries and illnesses in the camp. But then someone has to pick up the baton, and go on produce moments for us. And it was sadly lacking tonight. I thought we were poor in the second half and invited the disappointment from the fans. I completely understand. And at the end of the day, I picked that team, and it hasn't performed well enough tonight.
You obviously mentioned Stephen Duke McKenna, and unfortunately, barely sort of 5 minutes after coming on. It looked like obviously you mentioned half time and talked about some of the words with the team. You made that change with Tom Curzon's coming off, looked to switch things up a little bit. So, we're not getting the rub of the green with the injuries. So how frustrating, given the sort of shift and the plan that you put in place at half time, was it, 5 minutes in, you sort of, rip that up and start again, isn't it?
It's been a story of that, story of the season so far. But what I don't want to do is, just climb on board the coach to the next game and go, I feel sorry for ourselves. There's a lot of games to play, and teams will expect we're on our uppers, on the ropes a little bit at the minute. We've had so many important players ruled out for months, and when you're us, we're not one of the bigger clubs at this level, and that's just being honest about it, and realistic. People will expect us to be really hurting it, and we are really hurting it. And we'll check for our resilience now. And in most cases, they'll be open, we go under. So it's a chance to shine, really, and stand up to that challenge, personality-wise. And I've put that across to the players. I know Paul and I are big enough men to take the flak, and that's fine. You learn a lot about people when you're on the downturn. But we've got to make sure, we'll continue to keep rising to the challenge. And importantly, we'll assess players on that basis first.
You looked to obviously during the second half, sort of enforce changes, but other changes as well to try and sort of change things up and shift things. So it's not sort of static in our approach. You looked like you were trying to sort of find a formula to get something from the game.
Yeah, of course we were. We wanted to unlock them. I mean, there was as we moved down the right, and we just a great opportunity at the fast take to put the ball in, and like they did, and we chose to turn that down. And sometimes that leads to frustration within the team. We need to supply the forwards on the pitch, with balls from out wide and centrally. If it's not working out centrally because we're not performing well enough on the ball and we're giving it away, and whether it's an anxious state of mind or confidence levels not being right up there, then sometimes it's simpler to try and get the ball out wide and get the fullback bombing on, but we've got to show energy. We've got to show a willpower to get up and down in the partnerships, and that inventiveness that was lacking tonight. We had enough attacking players on the pitch for all the game, to make an impact. But unfortunately, we fell short and we didn't execute the plan.
And finally, obviously, a disappointing result tonight. How important is it we sort of put this one to bed? He talks about personality, mentality. So just dust ourselves up, get back to it, because obviously another important game coming up at the weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be siege mentality now. And in the changing room, we've challenged the lads to, do you understand what that means? Do you understand how we've been fighting for this for years of people's lives? And we need to show tremendous pride in that changing room and come out fighting. Before this game we were saying let's make it 1 defeat and 6. Now we have to reset. We have to reset. It's a disappointing night, but we have to make sure that we remain in the fight and keep going for ourselves, our families, and for the fans that have been with us for a lot of years.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Cheers.